Hello and welcome to our week 6 for Practical English 2. Today, again, I'm going to be recording the video with the PPT. So please make sure, I'll try to embed the video in the PPT, but if it doesn't work, you can just click on the link at the start of the PPT and watch and listen at the same time. So I'm going to begin on for week 6. So please remember that week 5 was for teacher training, and we will be doing our week 5 class in week 13 instead. So we've moved on now to week 6. So if you take a look on slide 2, so I'm just going to make sure that our slides have numbers, because that will help. So if you look in the bottom right corner, you'll see the slide number. So I just want to move to slide number 2 to remind you that, especially for online, if you do submit an assignment late, please make sure to tell me, because the website, the GNUE website doesn't notify me. It doesn't send a message to me to tell me when a student submits an assignment. So if you do submit it late, I don't know. So please let me know. Or if you want to, you can send it to me directly at my email, which is here on the slide, S-A-R-K-L-E-Y, Sarkley, @hotmail.com. So we're going to move on now to slide number 3. So what I did is I took 2 student assignments, and these are basically, I just wanted to show a couple points. I moved the assignments around a little bit. They're not exactly the same. But basically what I'm trying to do is, when I go through your assignments, if I find, first of all, actually I should start with, your assignments were wonderful. I really enjoyed reading about all of the interesting people and pets that you guys have. And your stories or your paragraphs were really well written overall and very interesting, which is the point. I mean, that's what we're trying to do here. So very well done, good job. But we can, of course, improve, and so I chose 2 student assignments just randomly. It wasn't for any particular reason, but what I want to do is take a look at them and see if you can figure out some very simple ways to improve this writing. So what I'll do is I'll ask you to pause the video here and see if you can find 3 ways to make this paragraph a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to continue to the improved version on slide 4. So if you take a look, first of all, one of the biggest differences was many students put the title to the far left, but actually a title for this type of writing we would put in the center, so it's it grabs your attention. And for names, of course, the name should come under and to the far right. Please remember to use your student number as well, because it helps for me for marking. The other point was, if you take a look at the title itself, you'll notice that in the first title, the student didn't use capital letters. Now, by far, this was the most common mistake from student assignments. So please remember that a simple way, this is both for us when we're reading titles, but this is also for us when we're communicating that we're writing the name of something. We use demunja, we use big letters to bring attention to those words, because those are important. This is the topic of our paragraph, after all. The other points, very simply, were, if you notice, the student did a great job because they remembered the indent, the space at the beginning of the paragraph, to show that they're starting a paragraph, but then they separated the paragraph into separate pieces. So they did the introduction separately to the body and the conclusion. But actually, it's all one. So we want to keep that nice block shape. There are a few other ways that we could improve, but those are the main points that I would like to make. Moving to slide number 5. Again, this was another student assignment. So again, I adjusted this so it's not identical to the assignment the student wrote. Again, this was very well done, very well written, but we can improve. So pause the video now and see if you can improve this in 3 ways. Go. Now, of course, I'm going to move on to slide number 6. So in slide number 6, we can see that there are some really simple ways to improve this. I think the 3 simplest are, number 1, again, the positioning of the title and capitals in the title. And once again, the student didn't use capital letters. This isn't the actual assignment. This is just something that many students did. So I took some other points from assignments that could be fixed and added them. In this case, we should, of course, always capitalize your name and give your student number, don't forget. And of course, we need the indent. We need the space at the beginning of the paragraph to show that we're starting a paragraph. The other thing that many people did is they wanted to talk about a group of singers. So you have to decide which way to describe them. So either they could be a boy band. Bands traditionally, though, play instruments. So I went with singers. So because they're not one singer, they're a group of singers. In English, we must add the S. And then, of course, the verb changes to R. So they're famous Korean singers. And of course, because Korean is, it's the language, it's the people, we must have a daemunja because it's very important. So I think those are the simplest and best ways to correct this, or to make this paragraph even better, because it is already fantastic writing. But again, we can improve. We can always improve. So moving to slide number 6, we're going to move on to the first, the topics for this week, for week 6. So we're going to be talking about lists and transition words, and finally we'll be talking about how to cite. So what I'd like to do is move to slide number 8. And slide number 8, what I'd like you to do is take a look on page 18. So we're looking at the start of lists. And what I'd like you to do is to write about 3 things that you like, okay? And notice that when we use this in English, we should follow this particular pattern, and we should use this particular sorry, I'm just writing in that it's at the top of page 18. So you need to notice the connector. Okay, so the connector in the first case is when we're talking about positive things. I like things. So I like, usually we want to have a theme or a topic. So we could do perhaps foods or fruits, even better. So write about 3 things that you like. You can choose one theme. So in this case, I chose fruits. So I wrote Jisoo, or I would say I like apples, bananas, and oranges. So if you notice, for each of the 3, we use a comma after, and before the last one, we use and. So and reflects yes, yes, yes. In the case of negatives, things we don't like, so you would say I don't like. And then in this case, especially if we're talking about a group of things, I don't like, you can use perhaps animals, like in this case I put cats, dogs, and chickens. But if you want to, you could talk about perhaps different things that you don't like to do, actions. I don't like reading, watching TV, or cooking, perhaps. I don't know. Anyways, you can choose what you'd like, but remember that the theme should be that they're all 3 connected. So we choose one form of the verb and make sure that we're talking about things that are true, of course. Then what I'd like you to do is take a look at the next part on page 18. And what I'd like you to do is answer the questions about yourself in this section. So of course you're going to be writing 3 things that you like, but what I'd like you to do is try 3 things now, new things that you like. So we're trying to get into the habit of using the commas and the word and to reflect positive. Number 2, what 3 things, I would like you to choose new things. What 3 things don't you like? And remember, again, for the connector for negatives, we would use or, okay? What about number 3, what 3 colors do you like? So 3 colors I like are mo, comma, and mo. So we use the and to show it's right before the last one. Traditionally, 3 is considered the perfect number for giving lists of things, but if you wish to use 4, that's also possible. But in the case of 4, we would use, your choice, comma, choice, comma, and then your final choice. So that's just to show when you're done. And then, of course, we've got some ice cream flavors that you like. And then number 5, what are 3 foods that you do not like? So remember, once again, when we're talking about foods we don't like, this doesn't mean that you absolutely necessarily hate them, but we're using don't. The NT is the negative. So if we see or we hear an NT, we know the matching connector should be or. So I don't like ginger, I don't like, I'm trying to think of 3 things. Ginger, eggplant, or bandegi, okay? So remember, in the case of the negative, what we're trying to do is we're using the same point about the commas. So we say 1 point, comma, 1 point, comma, and then in this case we're using or to show the negative. So the negative means no, I don't like that. So what I would like you to do finally for this exercise is to ask somebody these questions. So of course, because this is online, you can ask a classmate. That's lovely. But you're also welcome to ask, say, your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or whomever is next to you or near you. But do remember, please, to change your pronoun from I to that person. And of course, we start, the first one must be with their name, and then afterwards we can use he or she. So let's move on now to slide number 9. So what we're going to do now is talk about transition words, and most of you seemed pretty good with this, very comfortable, very familiar, but the point is to use these words to help readers, and if you present, we use these same words to help our listeners, our audience, to follow along in the presentation. So these are a global standard, they're very, very useful. And what I would like to do is kind of compare 2 points. So I've found that many students really like to use these sort of add-ons. So comma and so on, or comma, etc., or they use contractions. Now these are 3, we shouldn't be using these essentially, because if we say and so on, it's actually much better, much clearer for us to use a list of 3. We don't need to say and so on because it doesn't really tell us anything. Also, a paragraph is very short. I know maybe you don't agree with that, but honestly, in writing, if you think about a book length in a paragraph is very short. So because we're only looking at, say 100 to 250 words, we don't need to use these words. There's not enough writing to warrant to require using these. So anyways, don't use and so on, don't use etc. Please, there's no need. Use a list of 3, it's better. Now, for contractions, okay, we need to be careful with contractions. But maybe you're saying, well, what's a contraction? So in this case, what we're talking about is when we take 2 words and make them 1, okay? Contractions tend to be forms of spoken language. So when we're speaking, or if we're writing about a conversation and we write the conversation, then contractions are acceptable. But because we want to focus on university level, which means academic English, because we want to better, our English, then we would, when we're writing especially, we're going to show that we have skill. And it's essentially the way that it works is it easier or harder to spell do not compared to don't. So it's harder to spell do not because we have D-O and N-O-T and a space in the middle versus don't, which is just 4 letters. So what we're going to try to do is, in our writing, do not use contractions. Use the full words, please, okay? Moving on now, we're going to talk about Detail 1 transition words. So for our detail 1 transition words, I think these are really good ones. So we, instead of using first, because the difficulty is many students fall into the trap of first, second, third for detail 1, detail 2, detail 3. Actually, this writing is fine, but because for example, for elementary school students, I completely accept that because they're young and for them it's very easy. But because you are older and your vocabulary is much larger, and we want to show when we speak to people and when we write that our skill level is higher, what we're going to do is we're going to adapt. And we're going to use transition words, but we're going to use better ones, higher level ones. So instead of using one word, we're going to use 2 words or 3 words. So what do you like? We've got to start, for example, or to begin with. So these are excellent. These are transition words. Transition, of course, means changing, right? So movement, we're showing that we're moving from the introduction to our detail 1. This is very clear for the audience, very clear for your readers, but be careful. I would like now to talk about a difference between English and Korean. For people whose job it is to write, they are authors, they are writers, that is what they get paid to do. They can use types of English different to what we would normally use. But for us, because we are not authors, we are not writers, we should not be falling into these types of writing forms. So one example, and in Korean actually it's okay to start with because, but in English it's not a good idea. So we're going to explain, or going to look at why. Why is it okay? Why is it not? When is it okay? When is it not? So we should not be using because to start a sentence in English. We should not be using and to start a sentence, and we should not be using but to start a sentence in English. In Korean we can do that. The reason why we can't do that in English is because these words are called connectors. So actually what we need is 2 parts of a sentence with that word in the middle. We can't use them by themselves. For example, if we take a look here, we've got 3 examples of how to use these words. So if we say, I cannot make the recipe, that's acceptable. But if we want to give the reasoning why we can't use the recipe, then we would use because you cannot get the ingredients here. Now, if I just tell you because I'm hungry, you don't know the original point of why I'm explaining the reasoning behind it. So because we need the 2 parts. Moving on, and as we have just spoken about, and means yes, and yes, but it does talk about 2 things or more. So I like fishing, 1, and drawing pictures of nature, so that's 2. But the and connects that this is a positive and this is a positive, the 2 together. So starting with and actually is not a good habit. It is not a good writing form, a writing style in English, so please don't do that. Finally, but we can do this in Korean, and in Korean it is an acceptable form of writing, but in English it's not. So as I said at the beginning of the semester, there are some things that we can translate very clearly between English and Korean, some styles, some points that are the same. Then we have some things that are similar, and there are some things that are different. And in this case, this is different. So we can talk about 2 points when we use the word but. We have a positive, negative, or negative, positive. But we do need to have the 2 points. So I like fishing, positive, but I don't like cleaning. Okay, so we've got the positive and the negative, or you can flip it. I don't like cleaning, but I like fishing. Okay, it's up to you, but we do need the 2 points. Next, detail 2 transition words. So I'm now on slide 11. Detail 2 transition words I would prefer compared to second would be also in addition, next, or moreover. So if you'll notice that we're moving, we're just trying to make the words a little more interesting and to make your skill level that much higher. So for someone reading your work, they know your skill level is high. Anyways, please, I'm hoping you're noticing the SpongeBob and Patrick pictures saying you should write these words down, because on the bottom of page 18 you've got a perfect little spot for writing these down. Now, if we look at the red again, please do not use because, and, or but to start sentences, because these are connectors. So we're going to talk in a bit more detail about that, because there is a special case, but give me a minute, we'll get there. If we take a look at slide 12, this is a special case. Now, you cannot start a sentence with because in English and say because it is fun, because we don't know what you're referring to. So this is not a clear sentence. What is fun? There's no explanation. So what you can do is, if we take a look at the green writing in number 1 and number 2, there are 2 methods we can use if you wish to explain your reasons, explain your thinking. Number 1, okay, so I've got our 2 pictures here. Here's kimchi jjigae, and it tastes great. So we've got number 1, so we can start with, I like kimchi jjigae. And why? We're going to explain why. I like kimchi jjigae because it tastes great. So in this case, when we use the connector, we take 2 sentences and make it 1, which makes it a much higher level sentence instead of having 2 separate sentences. I like kimchi jjigae, it tastes great. So if we put it together, we get because, we make one nice long sentence, much higher level. Number 2, we can flip it, okay? So once again, we have our 2 sentences. It tastes great, I like kimchi jjigae, but again, we're going to connect it and make it a better sentence, a much higher level sentence, but we still have the 2 components of the sentence present. So, because it tastes great, I like kimchi jjigae. Okay, so we can use both, but we still need those 2 parts of the sentence to be present when we use the connector because in English. Anyways, I'm going quickly because, of course, we have half the time to normal. But if you have any further questions or you are unclear, please contact me. I can find you lots more information and lots of worksheets if you would like them. Moving on now to slide 13. So let's talk about and in more detail. Once again, one more time. When we use and, it means yes and yes. So positive and positive. We're including things. So if you start a sentence and you say, and it is interesting, actually this is incorrect because you haven't given me another adjective to describe what you're talking about. And it is interesting, just delete the and say, it is interesting. That is a complete statement, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to level up, which is what our job is, we want to increase the length of our sentences and to add more interesting information, then you would say, my book is fun and it is interesting. Ooh, lovely. My book is fun, my book is interesting. We put it together, we connect it with and, much higher level. Lovely, lovely. I don't know if you've read this book, but it's a great book, great series. And moving on. So we're going to talk now about but. So we've got these 2 ideas if we use but. But it is very exciting is not a complete sentence. You could just say it is very exciting. Perfectly fine. But I think the point here is, once again, we want to make 2 sentences. 1, use the connector. So we've got a positive, negative, or negative, positive when we use that connector of but. For example, we have here, it was a sad movie, but also exciting. Okay, in this case, that's wonderful because we've got these 2 ideas and we put it together and make this long, complex sentence. Wonderful. Or it was a little cold, but warm enough. Okay, so we're getting these ideas of positive and the negative, or you can switch it negative and positive. Moving on now to slide 15. This is our detail 3 transition words. So once again, rather than simply using third, because that's lower level, what's even better is to use these words. So the longer, the better is the theory, but you know, even if you count the letters, a longer word is better. So we've got last, comma, lastly, comma, finally, comma, or last but not least, comma. When you use these words, you show that you have moved to your third detail. You're coming to the close of the paragraph. That's wonderful. If you use transition words, and especially, you know, high-level transition words, ones that are new to you, and you get in the habit of using them, then you find that your writing improves very quickly and very dramatically, to be honest. Now, slide 16 is a choice. You do not have to use these, but if you want to, once again, these are good, and especially when you're when you have, you know, longer pieces of writing, like an essay or a paper or a presentation, something like that. When you want to finish something off, this is a really good signal transition that you're moving to the last step. So to finish off, we can use in conclusion, comma, to summarize, comma, or as you can see, comma. These are great words to show you're coming to the end of the presentation or the end of your writing. Now, I've found for many students that in a presentation especially, and writing, it's hard for students to express that, to show I'm finished, I'm almost at the end. So I've noticed that, you know, if you look at these words in red, you know, smiley faces, emoticons, or the, you know, cute eyes, or just saying the end, which is very abrupt and direct, or thank you for reading, thank you for, what do I get sometimes? Thank you for listening. But you can't say thank you for listening because you're not talking, even though, you know, it's reading, writing. But anyways, point being is that there's, you know, no need to use that. Even for my elementary school students, yeah, I would still be iffy about that because there's no language involved. You know what I mean? Like, it's the cute pictures or whatever. But really, as academics, because you are, you know, at a higher level, you need to show that in your skill, in your writing skill. So moving now to slide 17, this is your first homework assignment, and I'll explain when your homework assignments due at the end. So homework assignment number 1 is to talk about your partner's likes and dislikes. So whoever it was that you wrote the likes and dislikes about on page 18, what I would like you to do is to write one paragraph, okay, 10 sentences, about what you learned about that person from questions 1 through 5. You need to remember, please, to use the writing basics. So remember to use the title with capital letters, your name with capital letters, your student number, and remember, you know about the positions for each of those as well. Also, you need the indent, the space at the beginning of the paragraph, and your paragraph shape. So do not separate introduction, body, and conclusion. We want them all together. The way that we separate them is with our transition words. We know that those transition words show when we're moving to the next step. And of course, number 4, you do not need to write about all 5 points. Okay? So choose 3. What did you find interesting? What did you find was fun? And remember, please, how to write the list. So if you're talking about a positive, then we use the connector and. If we're talking about a negative, we use the connector or. Keep in mind that negative means the n, the not, the nt. If you do not have an nt, actually we would use and, because this is about writing, not about the feeling given. So because if you write, for example, my mom hates, okay, hate does not have an nt. It does not actually have a negative in the word. So we would use the connector and with hates. So if it's got the "nt," if there is a negative, we say "or." If there is no negative, we say "and." Number 5, don't forget to conclude. Who was your partner one more time? Remember to give their name at the beginning and maybe their relationship. Use a variety of words to describe that person. And of course, you can use pronouns after you have introduced who they are. But pronouns, for example, he or she, you should only really be using them maybe 3 times. After 3, it gets repetitive and boring. So try your best to use different words. What did you learn about your partner? That's your homework assignment number 1. And we're going to move on now to how to cite right. So if we take a look at how to cite right, slide 19, if you look at the bottom, we have two citations given here. We're going to move on now to slide 20. And what we're going to do is to think. So actually, this is an important step in any subject or in anything that you do. Did you choose an English book? So remember that was part of your assignment from last week. And the first thing I want to do is to think about why. Why do we cite? To cite is to explain where you got your information, where you found your information. And then what we're going to do is take a look at your book's information page. So usually this is on the inside cover. If you haven't found a book, you can just find a book that's near you or around you, but you should take a picture of the cover and you should take a picture of the information page so that you can read it clearly. I'm going to I'll use 3 books just so that you have an idea of what we're looking at. So I'll use Vernacular from class because that's easy. But also I'm going to use a couple of books here. So once again, you should be taking a picture of the cover, and the information page is usually maybe the first page or within the first few pages of the book, and this gives you all the detailed information. Once again, so this is a reader. This is an abbreviated, a short form of the real book. And the information page, once again, in this book, it's 4 pages in. So take a picture of the information page. Make sure you can read it, though, because you will need to write down the information. I'm going to give you these books as examples so we can do it together. But of course, you can use any book to cite as long as it is an English book. Doesn't matter if it's in Korean, but maybe then you have to translate it, which makes it a little bit more complex. Moving on, slide 21. So in slide 21, I'm just going to make sure that my video is still recording. Good, slide 21. The first thing we need to do, of course, is to think about why. Why do we do these things? So let's analyze why we cite. So essentially what we want to stop is we want to prevent students copying. So cutting from the internet and pasting and saying, this is my work. That is not allowed. What you can do is to take a look at what the word means. So why do we use cite? To cite is to show where you got your information from. And why? Why do we cite? We cite, again, to show where we got it from. Because maybe another person is interested in your information. They're interested in this book, so they want to find the same book or the same information. This is also to show that you have got this book and that you know all about these things. You didn't just take it from somebody and say, yes, this is mine. If another person wrote it or thought it or created it, you must cite it. Okay, and at university level, this is 100% must. So again, this is a global standard because if you do that, if you take work, say, from the internet, but you don't say where you got it from, this is called plagiarism. So if you look on the slide, the little picture of the boy he's looking at a book and he's copying straight from the book. Plagiarism is when you take someone else's ideas or work, same, and you say, I did that, or you present it as if it's your work. So you can't do that. That is illegal as a standard. And if you move to slide 22, you can see plagiarism once again. So the point about this is you can't copy directly. You have to show where you got your information from. So why? Why do we do this? You have to do it because that person worked very hard to make the book or to make the movie, which means we need to show that person's work, and I think their work is very good also. So we're going to use their work and then we cite it to say, this person did that. If you don't cite it, you take that person's work, it's stealing. The same case as, would you take someone's phone and not, that is illegal also. You can't steal things, but it's also for someone's words. This person wrote these words, so we can't just take their words and say, I wrote that. It's illegal. This is plagiarism. And if you take a look, you can see it's plagiarism. Number 5, where do we cite? We cite at the end of our writing. Okay, so we separate with a space, clearly separate, and then we write the citation at the bottom. Okay, so I just want to take a quick look at this quote from Aristotle. I like Aristotle. I'm not sure if you do or not. But anyways, he said it is our choice. So it's the choice of good or evil that determines our character, not our opinion of good or evil. So it doesn't matter actually what you say. This is right, this is wrong. This is legal, this is illegal. It's actually your actions that show what you really are inside. If you do copy and paste, or if you cite where you got the information from, it does take a little bit longer, but it does show that you have a good ethic. Moving on now to slide 23. This is an example of the information page, just to be really clear. So the information page usually shows, this is one example. Often there's more involved. So we have here the book title, the author, you also have the publisher, and the date published. So we can see it on the information page. On pages 19 and 20, please don't write full sentences. This is just practice. But what I'd like you to do is to take your book and write the information for questions 1 through 5. I suggest you do it now. Pause the video and do it now, and then we can take a look at it. Okay, so I'm going to move through the questions and talk about my books just to give you some examples. So number 1 is your author. Okay, so my author here is Robert Louis Stevenson. So what we're doing here is he's got his given name, his middle name, and his family name. So we put the family name first, so the last name is first, and then we put a comma, and then we put the 2 names behind them. Or you can put the initials, R-Jum, L-Jum is also fine. If I were to do this here, the author here is L.M. Montgomery, Lucy Maud. So I would put Montgomery, comma, and even though here it's all Demunja, we know, because we've studied this, that you only need 1 Demunja, and then the rest are Somunja, comma, and then L-Jum, M-Jum, okay? If it were Deborah and James Howe, okay, so we know these are the given names, so we would put the family name, and again, we don't need all Demunja, sorry. We need Demunja, Munja, comma, and then you can do D-Jum and J-Jum, or you can do Howe, comma, Deborah and James. Okay, moving on to number 2, my book title. So in the first case, my book title is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, okay? And remember, we're using the Demunja for this as well. In my second case, it's Anne of Green Gables. And in my third case, it is Bunnicula. And you don't need to give the full title. It's not necessary for this one because it's very long. The publisher. So the publisher, if we take a look inside, is my publisher is right at the bottom here. So I'll start with my Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is published by Oxford Bookworms Library. Okay, Oxford University Press. So you can choose. Oxford University Press is actually the biggest publisher, so you could just write that one. The point is not that you're exactly perfectly correct. The point is that you're learning who the publisher is and where to find the information from, and also that we're using Demunja to do so. If we take a look here, Anne of Green Gables. So again, this is just to help people find these books. Bantam Books is the publishing company, and for Bunnicula is the Athenaeum Books for Young Readers. Okay, moving on now to number 4. Question number 4 is my book's city and date of publication. So again, on your information page, you need to read quite carefully and look down, and we find here is this one says Oxford, New York, Auckland. So you can just write the first city that's there and the date of publication. You want the most recent date. So here I have 1991. Okay, so this is published in 1991. And for Anne of Green Gables, I'm going to take a look through. Anne of Green Gables was published in... Okay, so here we have a variety of dates, 1908, blah, 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 blah. We want the most recent, which is 1998, and the city it was published in is New York. Okay, so we've got New York, 1998, sorry. And then Bunnicula, look again, Bunnicula, and this one, again, we have lots of choices of the cities, but New York is listed first. And the date is 1979. So anyways, look through your books and put in the information. Once you have the information, you can write the full citation, which is in slide 25. So if you take a look at slide 25, you can see that this is how we write a citation. So essentially what you're going to do is write the citation with the author's family name first, comma, space, and then you put the initial or the full name. It doesn't matter. So for this one, I used The Last Wish, the book that was in the transition words list. And I don't have it here, but you know, this is all very simple. It should look essentially like this. Then you put the year in brackets, okay? And then with our, we put the title, okay? And the title, you can use italics usually, which is if you take a look at the home screen, and if you look underneath the font type, so for here I have Gill Sans MT. If you look, we have 1, 2, 3 buttons, and the first button is bold to make it blacker. The middle button is the italics button, and what italics does is it just tilts the letters, and this shows us it's the title of a movie, a book, or a song, or something along those lines. So you can use italics if you want to, you don't have to. And then after the title we do a comma, and we write down the publisher's name with a colon, and then your city. And that is your citation. So, as I think you can guess, your second homework assignment is, if you take a look at slide 27, I would like you to write another paragraph. So you have 2 paragraphs for homework. Number 1, please use your English language book that you chose. You don't have to read the whole book. There's no need for that. This is just practice for us to find information about the book and to practice citing. You can also teach this to elementary school students. I recommend this very, very highly. What I would like you to do, though, is I would like you to write 10 sentences, the same format, using all of what we know, what we have studied so far, to talk about why you chose this book. And of course you can say, you know, because the book was beside me. It doesn't have to be an amazing reason. Just explain your reasoning, the 3 reasons why you chose this book. Next week, because next week we will of course be in class. So for week 7, what I would like you to do is to bring a picture of your book. Bring the book itself is also wonderful, and to take a picture of the information page as well. So you would need 2 pictures, the cover and the information page. Moving to slide 28, please remember, when you write your paragraphs, include the writing basics. Make sure your titles have capital letters. Remember that your title is in the center, your name has capital letters, and your student number and is off to the right. Remember, please, to include 2 sentences, an introduction about your book and why you chose it. So both of them should be in the first 2 sentences. Then also I would like you to give me 3 details for why you chose it, using transition words to help me as the reader to follow along with your thinking. And of course you need your conclusion as well. You need to restate what your book was and why you chose it. And then a 5th step at the bottom of the page, okay, a little bit separate from the paragraph about why you chose your book, I would like you to write the citation. Please make sure to once again use your transition words. So I'm on slide 29. And your transition words, again, I've given them here for your detail number 1. I will allow first this time, detail number 2, and detail number 3. In conclusion, or to summarize, or as you can see, of course, is optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. Do be careful, please. You cannot use at last. At last reflects the idea that you have been waiting a long time for something and finally it arrives. So we can't use at last to give a 3rd step, 3rd detail. Moving to our final slide. Please complete the 2 paragraphs. Okay, so the first paragraph, of course, is the partner interview paragraph about their likes and dislikes and writing the lists. And number 2, your awesome book choice paragraph about whichever book it was you chose. And please submit the 2 paragraphs to the GNUE site by Monday, October 17th at 12 a.m. I will accept it as late until Monday, October 24th at 12 a.m. But afterwards, of course, I will not accept any more assignments. Thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you in class in, I guess, just over a week's time. So goodbye and have a great day. I'm going to stop the video at 50 minutes, but the video is now finished for you. Bye.